Hi, this is John Krysinsky back here. We're back here with Matt Popchock. Matt, we just looked at the highlights. The Hounds 1-1, Detroit City FC. Pretty good opponent, even though they're a new USL team. I think I'll tell you this, they adjusted really well in the second half. I thought I just thought they did an excellent job to kind of turn the match into their favor after really the first half, everything went the Riverhounds' way.
I would agree, John. And I think that as first impressions go, they were very much the enthused and cohesive expansionists that Soccer Rabbi predicted they would be when he wrote his team preview this week. They play with a lot of energy. They work hard. And to your point, they obviously don't fold like cheap deck furniture when one thing goes wrong, let alone 2, 3, or 4. They're an impressive opponent, and they're going to win a lot of games, I think, by USL expansion side standards. And I think that's what made this kind of a tough game, not only for the Riverhounds to play in, but for people like you and I and Mark to diagnose, is because nobody knows what to expect from a team like this. They're obviously the feel good communal lower division soccer story. They clearly have some players who can play, good mix of young and old, but again, they are just that, an expansion side, and that doesn't always go well. But I think this one is pretty well peopled, and it seems to be pretty well run. I like the fan atmosphere too, which I'm sure we'll touch on eventually. But yeah, it was they were a very feisty opponent, I thought, for Pittsburgh today, and a scoreline very much indicative of how the match actually went.
Yeah, so in the first half, as we saw in the highlights, Albert Dikwa gets his first goal, and it feels like you can slot Dikwa in for Kelly. There's not, obviously Dane Kelly at the top of the attack. You want him, playing a lot as the target man, but I think Dikwa asserted himself very well in the first half.
Yeah, I got on the Albert Dikwa train 1 year too late, or 1 year too early, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I always say he was my pick to click for the 2021 season. Off to a pretty nice start in 2022. Had a goal right at the end of that first match. Yeah, he has 2 already in the can this year through 3 matches. Not a bad start at all. And I think the one redeeming quality you can take from today's match, or at least the biggest one, is another set piece goal. This team is doing already much better with set pieces and finishing set pieces than it did a year ago. That was a big annoyance, if not pain point altogether, for the offense last year. So yeah, that was a very nice and deserved goal.
Yeah, the Hounds were outpossessed in the first half, but it was sort of the same strategy as the Memphis win when they won 3-1 in Memphis. The difference in this match was in the second half, they didn't have an opponent that this, as the announcers aptly pointed out about, a few minutes into the second half, this is the first time the Hounds had to play an opponent that weren't down a man into the second half. Yeah. So obviously that actually probably mattered a little bit. And it was their first chance, time to play against a full opponent, 11 squad opponent for the full 90 minutes. So that was an interesting twist there. But still they outpossessed it. Detroit outpossessed them. They were kind of moving the ball around, but it seemed like every time they would try to play the ball into like that second or third pass through the midfield, the Hounds had an answer for them. There was interceptions. I think they had 14 in the first half. I didn't look at the end of the match statistics, but that was very telling. And they were taking away what Bob Lilly talked a lot about earlier before the match was they're so dangerous on the wing. We got to make sure we kind of slow them down out on the width. And it seemed like they did that in the first half. In the second half, I thought Detroit had a little bit more. They were a little bit more patient. They didn't force as many passes. They started to get the ball a little bit wider. And you could see they had some corner kick opportunities, and they started to do some more things from the width. And the Hounds were under some significant pressure in the second half.
I agree. Yeah, I'm in the scheme of things, I think Pittsburgh was definitely the more assertive team in the first half, and the scoreboard reflected that. I think Detroit was, in general, the more assertive team in the second half. And I think after 90 minutes and change, the scoreboard reflected that as well. That in that first half, the way the Riverhounds got that early goal from Dequa and settled more and more into it, and they kept generating chances. You talked about clogging up the midfield, and that's lily ball. That's what Bob wants to do. Bob wants to jam up the middle. He wants to create the biggest mess humanly possible between the 30-yard markers, if you will. And for most of the first half, the Riverhounds were doing that. They were doing just that. I think in that respect, Detroit is a little bit fortunate that this is week 3 and not, say, week 23, pardon me, by which point, soccer gods willing, the Riverhounds will have had more time to develop chemistry, maybe develop a little bit more of a killer instinct than they showed today. Because, again, in the first half, they were the better side, and they were that close on a couple of times to making that match a lot more lopsided than 1-0, after 45 minutes.
Certainly, after 45 minutes, the Hounds were up 7-3 in shots, and I think they only gave up one shot, and it wasn't even on frame. So they were clearly in control of the match. Another interesting tidbit here, the Hounds, Coach Bob Lilley he really dipped deeper into his roster today. He went with numerous players getting their first starts this year. A couple we haven't seen, but we expect to play a lot, and that's Danny Rivera for one, Albert Dequa we already talked about, Nathan Dos Santos, Kevin Silver in goal, and Wyatt Borso at the top of the attack as well, or kind of in that wide spot. Maybe we've seen Alex Dixon in that similar spot there. So no Dixon today at all, no Dane Kelly at all. Canardo Forbes comes in the 61st minute. So personnel wise, I think Bob, he's recognized the need to get these players out there. He wants them to get into these pressure situations, to be uncomfortable. He has a lot of faith in all the players on his roster. We've talked about this. He feels comfortable. At this point can go 17, 18, 19 deep in his roster in terms of field players and put out a pretty decent group out there. I mean, they showed it in the first half.
They're going to go even deeper, John, because they signed another field player this week and another goalkeeper for that matter. So they got 3 keepers on the roster now, which is an interesting situation to have. But I guess it was to be expected. I guess today you have your two of your regular defenders on international duty with Trinidad and Tobago. Right. So already right off the hop, they're not necessarily going to be playing with a full deck today, at least on that part of the pitch. So it was interesting to see Bob go even beyond that and go with an even more tinkered lineup, if you will.
And you mentioned one of the new signees was Luis Argudo, who got in the match and had a shot late in the match, came pretty close there. It was the 85th, 86th minute. Kind of got some room, got forward and sent that shot towards the right side. And I'd say it was about a couple feet maybe wide of hitting it.
I mean, he can play. Seem to demonstrate that much. It is encouraging though. I think that there's we're into the season now. It's week 2, week 3, and they're still adding pieces. They're still adding these guys, whether they're depth guys or whatever. It says a lot about how certainly you would think the culture of the club has improved in a big way, that all these guys, they want to sign with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. They want to play for a coach like Bob. I mean, the guy wins and he wins consistently. And, you're going to have a chance to be part of a good thing here, or at least you'd like to think that's what's going through these guys' heads when they put pen to paper on that USL contract. But it was interesting to get a first glimpse of him, and that was hopefully a sign of him getting more of those looks, and hopefully getting some of those looks a little bit closer to frame going forward. Another weapon for the Hounds to have there offensively when they don't have the guys that weren't out there today is never a bad thing. But I mean, generally speaking, 1-1 on the road against an opponent that none of us had any idea how the hell to get a read on. That's not a bad result. Again, given that you knew you weren't going to go in there with a full lineup. And not only you get a point, but to your point, Bob gets a pretty good early season look at what he has to work with beneath the guys that he's going to be rolling with for most of the season. So, the win would have been nice, obviously, but a lot to take from getting the single point as well.
Yeah, and also they're heading into a little bit of a busy stretch, if you will. Next Saturday, they'll play the surprising Loudoun United FC, who are sitting higher up in the standings than we all anticipated in our pregame previews ahead of the season. So interesting matchup there, and obviously for Shane Wheat maybe and Robbie Dambrot as well, another player who didn't play today, but I've digressed. The other part of that is they're going to have to turn around the following Tuesday, play I believe it's Maryland Bobcats in the U.S. Open Cup, which kicked off this past week at the first round. Now the second round will be in April, I believe April 5th at Hamtramck Stadium. So they'll have back-to-back games at Hamtramck Stadium, a regular USL match against Loudoun, and then the U.S. Open Cup. So again, squad rotation does become an issue, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And the Riverhounds have a little bit of a conundrum facing them. And I'm interested to see how Bob responds to the conundrum because, on the one hand, do you keep your eyes on the prize, recognize that you're a USL championship side that is in win now mode and has the pieces to win now? And so you got to just focus on that and doing whatever it takes to keep guys rested and ready and try to win USL competition matches now. On the other hand, it's been since God talked to Moses since we had a USL Open Cup match to talk about at Highmark Stadium. It feels like that anyway.
It feels like it, yeah.
It does feel like it. And if there
2019,
were ever yes,
I believe.
Yes, that is accurate. And if there were ever a Riverhounds team that were well-peopled and well-coached enough to win a couple of U.S. Open Cup matches and maybe on their best day catch one of the MLS clubs napping like Cincinnati back when they were in USL and a couple other teams have done in the past, this is a chance for the Riverhounds to build more credibility for the organization on a national level. So, well, I mean, what do you do? It's a tough situation to be in, but it's a good situation to be in, and interesting to see what that Open Cup starting 11 looks like, let alone the starting 11 for Loudoun and for Tulsa the week after that.
Yeah, my feeling is it's probably going to see more of the starting 11 from the first 2 weeks against Loudoun, and then a lot of the starting 11 maybe from today. You'll see components of it, maybe a few wrinkles for the Tuesday night Open Cup match. So it's kind of the way I see it as it breaks down. All right, let's put a wrap on things here, Matt. What man of the match? Who do you like today for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds? Man of the match.
Man of the match, I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm going to go with the goal scorer, Albert Dikwa. Again, I was encouraged to see this team again finish a set piece and get another big set piece goal, get up on the road against an unproven opponent early. Those were all good things. And Albert Dikwa, getting those animals off his back and getting another goal, his second in 3 matches, that's very big as well. And the more he gets involved, whether it's in an irregular lineup or not, the better. So yeah, I'm going to go with Dikwa.
I kind of go with you. I like Dikwa's performance. I like the fact that he converted. He was in the right place at the right time. I did want to tip my cap though to Arturo Ordonez, again making a start for the Riverhounds. He's made all 3 starts. The former Pitt center back. I thought he was really solid. He had 52 passes today. He's winning his duels. He's like 6. He was I believe. He won 8 of 10 duels today. And defensively, there were a couple times, as we saw in the highlights, one opportunity that Detroit City had. One thing that Arturo does so well is his recovery and his ability to recover. it's just second to none. He knows how to close space and kind of get in somebody's ear, even if they kind of get behind the back line. So I did want to kind of put a shout out there. 4 clearances today and a tackle, an interception, and discipline wise too. I think he's I think he's solid back there, very reliable, and he's already showing that he can be an outstanding player at the USL Championship level. So I shout out to Arturo Ordonez, that first half in particular, but they were under a lot of pressure, I thought, in the second half. Really could have went way against them. We didn't really get into the whole whether or not Nathan Dos Santos' left hand came out, the controversial potential handball, the Griffin foul. You can go either way there as well. There was contact. The ball did scoot out there nearby with the contact. So I did sort of evened out. I think it sort of evened out if you had an issue with either one of those.
I was just going to say, and I know we got to wrap up, but I was just going to say, yeah, I thought it evened out. In hindsight, the handball, I think, was a handball. You're not going to get a lot of argument from me on that one. The foul against Griffin, generous, yes, but so was not getting called for a handball. So again, water kind of finds its level, and things kind of even out there.
All right, so it was an exciting early season match. Riverhounds, Detroit City FC. I got it right towards the end here. 1-1. And as I said, next week it's Loudoun United, Saturday night, Hamtramck Stadium. Matt, thanks for joining me. Another real good wrap up and reaction. Appreciate your time tonight and your support and all you do for Pittsburgh Soccer Now.
Thanks, John. Always a pleasure.
All right, thanks.